Hello, everyone, and you are listening to the Fantasy
Football.
Fanatics. So, to begin, what our idea for this video was to list our consensus of what our quarterback rankings would be for the fantasy season coming up. And so, we each made our own rankings and then piled together the averages to come up with what we thought would be the best rankings to have. If you have anything to add.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, and we're doing the top 15.
Yeah. All right, so get things started. Our consensus number one quarterback was Patrick Mahomes. My ranking of him was number one, and I have him as number one for consistency. I mean, I think I can describe more other players around him to back him up, but I think he's always played at a high level. He was the QB6 last year, but that was due to injury. And I think that he's still going to be consistent. None of the offense changed. And he has you're not going to lose his rushing and his receiving because he did both at like an average pace. None of them was like over the top, which could regress in a year. If you have something to add.
Yeah, well, I personally have Mahomes at number two. I tried to make an argument to not have Lamar Jackson as my number one, and because Mahomes, of course, he finished number one the year prior to that. But I looked at the stats and I saw Lamar Jackson. He averaged like 6.5 more points than Patrick Mahomes this past season, which I think Mahomes had a bit of a down year. So I tried. I'm like, okay, if I take away 300 rushing yards from Lamar Jackson and 4 passing touchdowns, will that still go down to Mahomes' level? And for me, it didn't. But I do expect the rushing total to come down a bit for Mahomes. For Jackson. But yeah, I really do like Mahomes. I don't have a problem having him at number one. He's got great receiving options. He's got, crazy speedy options. We saw him get that, what was it, 50 touchdowns the first year starting.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the season, he looked like he might repeat that. It was kind of crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I really like Mahomes this season. I have him personally number two, though.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point of reducing Lamar Jackson, still getting him above in fantasy total. But I think injury did come into it a little bit.
For Mahomes, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, now we go to number two, which if you couldn't guess it, it's Lamar Jackson for our total. I actually had Lamar Jackson at number three. I feel like he's got a big dip in rushing, partially because of what he said about wanting to be a more pocket passer more. I think he'll still have above of what every other player will have, but I think that it's just in these type of high situations, a dip usually comes the year after. So that's where my basis went. And then who I had for number two was Dak Prescott. I think gaining CeeDee Lamb, they're just gonna be on fire. And I think in the top three, they're gonna be very close. But I think Dak Prescott would edge out Lamar Jackson this year for touchdown totals.
Yeah, I mean, for Lamar Jackson, for your argument here, a quarterback usually never repeats as the number one quarterback in fantasy. And we talked about before the episode that this whole quarterback draft class, I mean, for fantasy, this all the quarterbacks, it's such a deep group this year. So I personally don't think I'll be drafting any of these guys because I truly believe in the late round quarterback option because we saw Lamar Jackson. He was drafted late, finished number one. Patrick Mahomes the year before. I mean, you could draft too late and, one of them might hit. Some get injured. Everything always changes a lot from year to year. But yeah, I mean, Jackson, he doesn't have the best receiving options, I don't think. He throws the tight end a lot. Of course, he runs quite a bit. But I do expect his total to come down from what he had for total points this past season. I think he had 421 points weeks 1 through 16, and I think that will come down. But yeah, you said you mentioned Dak Prescott's name, so he's our next guy. We have him consensus number three. I had him right at number three, and he had a great season last year. I mean, And then he lost Randall Cobb and Jason Witten, but he had a CeeDee Lamb, who we thought was probably the best receiver prospect in this class.
Hmm.
I really like Michael Gallup too, and then of course Mari Cooper got paid $100 million. But Dak Prescott, he does have a little bit of rushing ability, and that helps you in fantasy. But also another argument for Dak Prescott, why I have him in my top three, is the Cowboys lost a lot of pieces on defense,
Yeah,
right?
that's why
Their
I
first
had him
round
above.
pick,
Yeah.
yeah, and their first round pick was a receiver, so it was not defense. So I think their defense is going to allow a lot of points, and it's going to have to force Dak Prescott to come back and put a lot of points on the board. So he finished number 3 last year. I think he'll probably finish in the top 3 again this coming season.
Yeah, and I bring up that point of this QB class is so deep. It's, I mean, any of them could take top 1, 2, or 3, and that's with any of these rankings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
So going into our consensus number 4, we had Kyler Murray. That is someone we both agreed on to be number 4. Obviously, he was first. He was the QB 8 last year, but he gets a huge boost from DeAndre Hopkins. The touchdown machine, touchdowns translate into huge points in fantasy, and again that dual rushing ability with throwing, having that offense, and I think it would be pretty more balanced than last year. Hopefully that offensive line doesn't get to Kyler, but I really see big things from him, and he's definitely going to grow with having a prime wide receiver 1 on his side.
Yeah, the offensive line that you just mentioned there, I don't think they have the best group, but I really like that they got Josh Jones in the third round, who he'll be at the very least good depth or swing tackle on that offensive line. Maybe he'll start at right tackle. But yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray, he had a great year last year as a rookie. Now it's year 2 in the NFL year 2 in Cliff Kingsbury's system. Uh, yeah, and like you said, he's got that rushing ability. And of course, the big thing is DeAndre Hopkins. So with all those factors, it just points me in the direction showing that Kyler Murray is going to have a fantastic year. Although it does worry me a little bit because all of the hype last year, it feels like the exact same thing that Baker Mayfield received
Yeah,
last year with Odell Beckham coming there. But I personally think that Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield.
yeah, and I'd agree with that. All right, so going into our consensus number 5, we have Josh Allen. So this is where our picks varied a little bit. Josh Allen is number 5, but we both agreed he was number 6. But he's our number 5 because of who we both had at our number 5 varied. But anyways, I'll go into Josh Allen. Josh Allen gains Stephon Diggs, a great outside wide receiver, and he already had again that rushing ability and the receiving ability, and not receiving, throwing ability. He of course was lacking a little bit with consistency in that area, but I think having that wide receiver will help. His offensive line isn't too shabby. And what was his ranking last year? They had him as, I had this out,
He finished QB6 last year.
QB6. So I mean that's right around where he will be again. I don't think he's going to decline at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. He finished at QB6. I don't see how he doesn't at least replicate or improve on that, honestly. So Stephon Diggs is going to help a lot. It's going to be year 3. We saw a big improvement from year 1 to year 2 in his accuracy. If he makes even a slight bump up in his accuracy in year 3, we've seen he has that rushing ability. He reminds me a lot, honestly, of Cam Newton
Yeah,
because he's got that big body that gets a lot of touchdowns from the goal line rushing it. And Cam Newton also had a little bit of accuracy concerns. And Cam Newton, we saw him finish number 1 and 2 in fantasy multiple times. So, I mean, Josh Allen has that ceiling. And now that he has somebody like Stephon Diggs, the way Cam Newton had Steve Smith, his ceiling is very high. And I really like what I saw from him at the end of the year. And, of course, in that playoff game, he had the Texans. He had them beat, but he couldn't do anything at the end of the game. So he'll need to improve the finishing of the game there. But yeah, Josh Allen, I really like him a lot this year.
yeah. Sorry, I had to gesture something to someone. I will explain that in the video. I can type something there. Anyways, I agree with everything you said about Josh Allen. Comparisons to Cam Newton, the accuracy is right there. I mean, concern, I guess, would be when he does like to go for a lot of goal line touchdowns. I definitely don't want him to be injured. But I
Although
feel
if he
like,
does, good for fantasy. All those
yeah,
touchdowns on the
he
ground.
needs those touchdowns, and I think he is pretty durable for what we've seen so far. I don't
Yeah.
want to jinx anything, knock on wood. But anyways,
But
I'm
yeah, I think he feels
expecting
like a
great
safe
things.
pick because he has that rushing floor that he already gives you on top of what he's going to give you through the air.
Yeah. All right. So our next QB consensus of what we have is at number 6, Russell Wilson. So this goes into what we varied among our rankings. He was our total 7.5. So that tells you that the rest of the people just like were all over the place. But Russell Wilson was my QB5, and then Josh Allen was my 6. I have had Russell Wilson in fantasy for the past 3 years. He's never given me a bad year, never lost me any games. There's been games, of course, where he's done little less than what he's been able to produce prior to that, but I think he performs at a consistent level, at a high level, at a consistent basis. His offense didn't really change. Offensive line didn't really change. I don't see them really dipping, but I know JP has a lot to say about him, so I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, like he said, the average for our ranking for him was 7.5. That's because he had him at 5 and I had him at number 10. And the reason I have him lower is because of the consistency I see from him because he had less than 16 points 40% of his games last year, weeks 1 through 16. And there just seems like there's games that he disappears. And what worries me is Pete Carroll because if he can just run the ball the whole game and win that way, that's what he wants to and likes to do. I personally think Russell Wilson was honestly a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. He's just a winner, always in the playoffs, always gets the job done. But it's just the offense. I wish they would just unleash him and let him do what he's capable of, the way Andy Reid does with Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, it's just the consistency. Like I said, 16 less than 16 points doesn't make you very happy in fantasy for the quarterback position, and it's just they like to use the running game a lot. I mean, it's nice that Russell Wilson does get a little bit on the ground, but I saw some games last year where they just pounded it and pounded it with Chris Carson the whole game since they were ahead and didn't let Russell Wilson do a whole lot.
Uh, yeah, I can agree with that. Um, I feel like I didn't really feel those down games, also because I had Tyler Lockett. So, I mean, I might have been a little biased because whatever he was able to produce, Tyler Lockett was usually his guy. So I didn't really feel like there was a loss there. But I see what you mean by the pounding of the rock,
Yes.
but and Pete Carroll's way. But I would like to believe that he'll become more consistent like he was in prior years. But we'll see. Yeah. All right. So next ranking we have is at number 7, Drew Brees. He had an 8.0 ranking overall. I personally had him at number 8, so that
As did
works
I.
out. Yeah. So that we agreed upon, but um, there's some other things. Anyways, Drew Brees, um, of course, he suffered an injury last year. I don't think that will really impact him too much. He, I think he throws the ball, of course, super accurate, super well. He just gained Emmanuel Sanders, an actual wide receiver too for him to use. Um, offense improved; it didn't decrease. He was the QB 20 last year. Again, that was an injury, first 5 games. But I think he's more consistent than Russell Wilson. I had him 1 year too. Of course, each year doesn't really translate to the next. But I mean, there's no like really. Hasn't really been super good, but like I think top 8 is always could get you. You're not gonna lose because of him.
Yeah, there was a point where he was always a really good fantasy option, like in the top five for years, but they've seemed to evolve a little bit into a more run first offense. But I mean, it's a pretty balanced offense. But Drew Brees, I'd say he's the top three most efficient quarterback in NFL history because his
Yeah,
completion percentage, he's just so accurate. And having Michael Thomas, of course, helps because he has fantastic hands and route running. But yeah, I mean, I have him at QB8 too. He was actually QB 2 in points per game from week 8 on when he returned from injury from players that played at least 3 games. But the thing is, yeah, QB2, that's great. So you might wonder why don't you have him higher then? But it's because from weeks 1 through 15, Alvin Kamara had 1 rushing touchdown. He missed 2 games in there, but 1 rushing touchdown. When the year before he had, I think it was at least 14, because they do use the running game a lot inside that 10 zone. So it was kind of shocking to see that Drew Brees was getting a ton of touchdowns. Alvin Kamara wasn't getting nearly as many, but I think that's due for some regression for Drew Brees and positive regression for Alvin Kamara. But yeah, I think he's a safe option. It's really exciting that he's got Emmanuel Sanders here. But everybody that we've talked about so far, I mean, I'd be very happy with him as my starting quarterback. There's tons of quarterbacks that I'd be happy with and that could finish easily in the top five.
yeah. I mean, you talked about why don't we have him higher. I mean, you also go with who we have above him and the ceiling that they have,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's really just it's a choosing game. Top 15, you could be happy with either one of them. All right. Next one, we go into. Let me go back to that list. Our consensus top 8 was Tom Brady. He had an 8.0 ranking, but he goes below Drew Brees because of where we had him in consistency basis. But anyways,
They're essentially like tied for in
yeah,
the
they're
ranking.
tied. Tom Brady, QB 12 last year. I think that suits his number. Anyways, uh, he just went to uh, looking like one of the most high-powered offenses in history. If he performs anywhere near his early level, I think they'll do really well. He doesn't have that running threat, but you have 2 previous 1,000-yard receivers, a promising young tight end, a definitely great tight end in Rob Gronkowski. Um, their running backs aren't too shabby. Um, Again, average defense. They could be playing from behind, playing to win. I don't see them really sticking to the run game truly, even if they're winning. I don't think they're more of Bruce Arians isn't a pound the rock type person. But I just think he'll have a big year. I put him above Drew Brees, but I mean they're both great quarterbacks. Yeah,
Yeah, I had Tom Brady at number 9. And yeah, the fact that he finished QB 12 last season and on New England, that was quite a feat in itself because
their
their defense
offense.
was their defense was so great that their offense didn't need to do anything, and he didn't have the best of weapons. So you go from a team that had a great defense where you're always ahead, not needing to throw the ball, to a team that does not have nearly the defense. And I feel like he's going to have to throw the ball more, and they're going to ask a lot more from Tom Brady this year. Plus, the weapons are a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we know Bruce Arians also likes having a pass catching running back, and they drafted Keyshawn Vaughn, and he could fill that kind of James White role. I don't think they really need to have quite as much volume to the running back because of the other options. But
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to see that they got a guy who can catch passes out of the backfield. Plus, in the first round, they drafted Tristan Wirfs to shore up that offensive line, on top of having Gronk, who's a great blocking tight end. So I think Brady's probably gonna have pretty good protection. Although he's a guy that, even though he's not mobile, he doesn't even need the best protection because he gets the ball out of his hands so fast. But yeah, I mean, from finishing QB 12 last year, I think it's a given that he finishes top 10 with these weapons as long as the defense isn't, elite like New England's was last year.
Yeah, I can do nothing but agree there. All right, next quarterback we have at quarterback 9 is Matt Ryan. His overall score was 8.5. I had him at 10, and he was the QB 11 last year. Didn't really change there for me. Again, you get into these back halves, just very consistent quarterbacks. He's never really had bad years. Not been outstanding, except with the thing that JP is going to talk about. But I think that he has Todd Gurley, which can actually balance him out with the volume he was getting. I don't think it will hurt his fantasy because it just allows him to breathe. But I think they're still going to go high volume, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. And then I'm not going to add any more because I feel like JP has a lot to say about him.
Yeah, well, I personally have him above Drew Brees and Tom Brady. I have him as my 7th overall quarterback. And what's going to be shocking right here is a stat that I'm going to tell you, right? So in 2015, he finished as the QB 19 in the first year with offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan. The second year in that system, finished QB 2. Then changed offensive coordinators again. They got Steve Sarkisian. First year in that system, 2017, he was QB 15. Second year in the system, he was QB 2 in 2018. Then they got a different offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter, and he finished QB 11 in the year 1. And then this year is going to be year 2 in the system. It's crazy because Matt Ryan has never had that consistent offensive coordinator. You got to learn a new offense every 2 years, and we've seen him thrive almost every year in the second year in that system, QB2, in the second year for the last 2 offensive coordinators. And that defense didn't really get much better. I mean, I know that team better than most people. They lost Vic Beasley, Devondre Campbell. They lost Desmond Trufant, arguably 3 top 5 players in their defense. They added Dante Fowler, and they also drafted A.J. Terrell. I don't think Terrell is going to be as good as Trufant year 1. And they didn't really replace Devondre Campbell in their linebacking core. So I think their defense is going to allow tons of points. This is a high-powered pass-first offense. It's not somebody like the Titans who are run-first or even the Seahawks kind of. So they're going to rely on Matt Ryan to score points. And you got Calvin Ridley year 3, and this is also going to be his year 2 in the offense. It's not just Matt Ryan, the whole offense year 2. Except for Hayden Hurst, who's coming in. It does hurt a little bit that he lost Austin Hooper, but the fact that he's thrived year 2 in these systems, that's why I'm very bullish on him. I have him at number 7. It's not super high. I'm not going to draft him over some of these guys who, like the Mahomes and Jacksons, Kyler Murray, Dak, but I really like him a lot this year, and I think he's going to be somebody you might be able to get around the 9th, 10th round potentially in fantasy.
Yeah, those are all great points. All right. So after Matt Ryan, we go into our consensus number 10. That would be Deshaun Watson. His overall total, 9.5. I was very low on Deshaun Watson. I actually had him, and this might make some people angry, at number 14, even though he was the QB4 last year. I know how great he is as the magician, can always extend plays, great on his feet, great accuracy. But I really think having a true wide receiver 1 and then feeling the effects of what that's going to be like taken away, having no one that's stepping up into that position. He's going to have all these weapons that were QB2s. I never feel like any. I don't feel like
Wide receiver 2s.
Wide receiver 2s, yeah. I don't feel like any of them really have been in the wide receiver 1 area or thrived in that at least. And I also think I don't know what the Texans are doing. I think there's going to be possibly a chemistry thing that you might have seen with Aaron Rodgers in his last year with his other head coach, Mike McCarthy. I'm not trying to innuendo anything, but I think that it's just going to be a struggling year.
You see Mike McCarthy?
Mike McCarthy, yeah. And
for Deshaun Watson?
How Aaron Rodgers did in his last year with Mike McCarthy, that
I got you.
chemistry basis, Deshaun Watson, Bill O'Brien. Obviously, probably not in the best terms right now. I don't think they're really two people to show obvious grudges though. Deshaun Watson is still going to want to perform at his best. I really hope he takes all these players around him to the next level, and I just see a big dip from him.
Yeah, well, you said he finished QB4, but if you take out week 17, he didn't play. That would have him at QB2 actually. But I I have him at my QB5, and I personally think that Brandon Cooks is a really good receiver. If you before this year, from 2015 through 2018, he had 1,000 yards all 4 seasons in a row. So I think that Brandon Cooks can be up in that 1,000-yard receiving total again with Deshaun Watson being the number one option personally. And I think Will Fuller is a good receiver when he's healthy. But, yeah, I don't think the receiving core is amazing, but I think Brandon Cooks really helps that core out. And Deshaun Watson, he's got that rushing ability, of course. And from when I watch him, it's just like he's just like a pure winner. We saw him come back or put up tons of points on the Chiefs that one game. It's crazy what he's able to do. He's not super consistent. He has, some of those low and really big boom games. But I think he can still be a top 5 quarterback despite losing DeAndre Hopkins, because I think Brandon Cooks is a great receiving option as well.
Yeah, and I think with both of our points, I think I'm content or happy with the overall ranking that we gave him, with where he's at right now at
That's all your fault.
number 10. Hey, you gotta think of who's above him too. I know we could talk about this for a while. Anyways, we'll go into our next quarterback, a name we haven't heard in the past year. Ben Roethlisberger at number 11, averaged 11. That's not due because we both thought he was 11. That's because one of us thought high, the other thought low. I was the high thinker. I had Ben Roethlisberger at number 9. Air raid, or it's close to air raid, not air raid, but an air offense you have there in Pittsburgh. He finished with 21 points per game in 2018 before he was injured. I know it was an elbow injury, but I don't really think it's going to impact him that much. He's always been a tough guy. If you average 21 points last year, you were doing really well at quarterback. And if he does even like 18, 19, that's still really good. I mean, and then still having those booming games and having that not really too far below the average type low games, that's going to be really good. I think that they have good young weapons, Deontay Johnson, Juju, who
drafted Chase Claypool, big receiver.
Chase Claypool, and I really see big things from him. Again, I think what really sells me is that the air system they have there.
Just the pass first offense.
Pass first offense. I keep saying air because I want to say air raid, and that's not what they do because it's a college thing.
Yeah, that we have him overall number 11. I have him 13th, and a big reason why. I mean, I really like him this year. 13th, that's still somebody that I really like because I said I'm going for the late round quarterbacks. And, yeah, he just lost Antonio Brown, and they had this great connection. Antonio Brown is an amazing receiver, and I think they're going to struggle a little bit with the consistency. Plus, their defense got a lot better. Last year, they almost made the playoffs with, like, the worst starting quarterback. They went to their backup and Mason Rudolph, and they went to the backup of the backup and Devlin Hodges. I don't think either one of them were very good. But since that defense is so much better, I don't think Roethlisberger is going to be asked to do quite as much. I still like him because I do like the options there. I like Deontay Johnson. He had a great year as a rookie. I think he's going to improve in year 2. Paired with Juju and Chase Claypool will be a great red zone threat. And they also added Eric Ebron. But, yeah, I mean, I do like him, like I said, but I don't think I like him as much as these guys I have above him is the only thing. That just speaks to how deep the whole QB, I keep wanting to say class, the whole QB depth in fantasy this year is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree. I just, we have to put rankings, and I hear what you say about the defense, but I think that defense is more going to help Roethlisberger breathe from those high interception games that he had in 2018, still having a great average in points. But, yeah, I'm just countering what you said.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost always a high-volume passer, though. So, I mean, it's not like I dislike him at all. It's just, these other guys I like better, like Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. These guys,
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So our number 12, if I believe, overall. I don't know what I do. Okay. Number 12 overall, we have Carson Wentz, average of 11.5. I don't know if I said Ben Roethlisberger, his average. That was 11. So Carson Wentz, we both had. Oh, that's what I did. I took the tab away from the tab. Sorry, guys. Anyways, I had Carson Wentz at 12, so that's exactly where I had him. He was QB 10 last year. Again, I think Carson Wentz is a great quarterback. Just think that people above him have greater potential. They didn't really get as much wide receiver depth as I wanted them to in the draft or in free agency. Um, but he's always good with who he has. I mean, when he's on the field, he raises everyone to a high level. And I think he really shows up, again, no matter who he has. And they run a pretty balanced system there. The defense got better, but I still think they're going to rely on Carson Wentz for a lot of close games. And it's more just who's above him, who's below him. He's a great quarterback, just not going to excel above who's above him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's later in drafts, he's somebody I would probably target because, yeah, he finished QB 10 last year. And, yeah, I mean, they added Jalen Reagor, and they also traded for Marquise Goodwin. They got him from the 49ers. And, yeah, I mean, I think those moves are good enough because they rely a lot on the tight end and the running back. I think they have a high target share to those positions. Plus the fact that Jordan Howard is not a terrible running back, but he's not a pass catcher. But their top two running backs now are Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, and those are both guys that are pass catchers. So it's tough because he was QB 10 last year. I think his weapons get a little bit better, and hopefully one of Jeffrey or Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy. It's hard to see him finishing lower than 10, but there's just so many great guys in this class. But yeah, he's definitely a guy. If I can get him as my starting quarterback, I'll be just happy, fine with that.
Yep, nothing to add there. All right, overall, QB 13. I need to fix this tab. Okay. We had Ryan Tannehill with a ranking of 13.5 in total. I personally had him at number 13, so that fits where we were again. We were actually very agreed in these last, not last, but these few right here. His offense didn't really change much. He was QB 22 last year. Also, he didn't play the whole year, and he played a high level when he did. I believe he had the best completion percentage, if not right up there in the top 3 when he was playing. He has, again, an emerging rookie in A.J. Brown. Corey Davis, who I think they wanted him as a wide receiver 1, but I think he's really solidified himself as a wide receiver 2. Did they still have him, right?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if they did anything with him. Anyways.
They just declined his 5th-year option, but he's still going to be playing this year.
Yeah. All right. They have, again, Derrick Henry take off any of the pressure that he needs. Of course, they're going to pound the ball. If Derrick Henry wasn't there, you could say Ryan Tannehill would be higher because of the system he's in. But you just have to think of how much throwing he's actually going to do compared to how much rushing they're going to do. I think he's going to make a lot of accurate passes when he is throwing, but he's just not going to do a lot with that. And then just the players above him, again, are better to where he's at.
Yeah, and he was QB3 in points since he took the starting job over, actually. Yeah. But the thing is, they had insane red zone efficiency. I think since he took the starting job over or something, they didn't kick a single field goal within the red zone. It was just insane. But yeah, he's shown that he has the ceiling. Like I said, he was QB3. He has this ceiling to finish within the top 5. But since they are a run-first offense and Derrick Henry is such a great running back and he fits that system so well, I don't think Tannehill is going to be a high-volume passer. He was very efficient last year, but I think the efficiency might come down just a little bit because teams are going to have like a whole offseason to watch film on him and also on A.J. Brown. But, yeah, I mean, I still like him as a good option. He was very consistent. He was really good last year, and he even had a little bit of a rushing floor that he gave you too, which is always really nice.
Yeah. That, yeah. All right. So our next QB 14 that we had in total. Gosh, sorry, the tabs. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyways, Matthew Stafford, number 14, overall ranking number 15. I had him very low. I'm not going to say the ranking because, to be honest, I could put Matthew Stafford anywhere from like top 8, top anything in these top 20 because he's always very good when he's on the field. Um, he's always played through injuries. I wanted to say he was injury prone, but he actually didn't actually have a lot of. He actually didn't have actually a lot of. That's a good sentence. A lot
He
of
didn't miss
games
many games in the last
missed.
like 9 years.
Yeah, missed before that. Um, he has great receiving options. I can't remember the names right now.
Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, but they've always been consistent for him. And then hopefully they get that running back game in order. And I want to see big things from the Lions. I want Matt Patricia to keep his job, but also want them to do well. And I think that he has the ability to do that. I just had him lower just because I don't know about a back injury, but again, that's no knock on what he can actually do.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good year last year before he got injured.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Marvin Jones, I think he's a really good wide receiver too. I think he's a little bit underrated personally. And Kenny Galladay, he showed what he can do last year. I think he finished as a top 5 wide receiver actually, and was kind of surprised because he didn't have Stafford for half the year. But he had the 6th most points per game at the quarterback position when he was playing. So I mean that's really good right there. And they also have Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift now. They're both guys who can catch the ball. You know, when Kerryon Johnson went out, they had guys like Bo Scarborough in there. And, you know, he's not a great pass catcher. But the fact that he has 2 great pass-catching running backs now, when he gets injured, for instance, or they can use them both. I love his receiving options. It's crazy because they have Darrell Bevell there, right? He's known as a pound-the-rock kind of guy on offense. And last year we didn't see that at all. Maybe we'll see more of that this year, but Matthew Stafford, he showed just how good of a connection he has with his receivers on like deep balls with Jones and Kenny Galladay. They had lots of big plays, and I think they can have a lot of big plays this season as well.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see great things from Matthew Stafford. I think he can truly do that.
Yeah, he's exciting.
Yeah. Okay, and our final, number 15, we have Aaron Rodgers, who also was average at 15. Matthew Stafford was at it well because of a lower ranking I gave him. But Aaron Rodgers, I had at 15 for my personal list. I think he was QB9 last year. I know, like, yeah, he's like one of the greatest people to be playing right now. But I've never loved him in fantasy. And, I mean, I feel like all the other quarterbacks above him will outperform him. They didn't gain a wide receiver too, like we thought they would. They have Aaron Jones, but it's just hard to believe that they're going to do well with him with that wide receiver 1 and not really having any of their options. Tight ends not really being there. I just don't see big production from him. But with believing his true talent, I think 15 is still a good spot for him.
He used to be like years ago. He used to be the king of fantasy, finishing as number 1 and 2 quarterback almost every year. But that a lot has changed since then. And he actually last season he had less than 16 points 53% of the time last year. So more than half the time, it was pretty disappointing, really. And like you said, they didn't add a receiver, you know, from the draft class for him, which was insane because they had, you know, I can't remember how many receivers were drafted. I think it was like 36, and it's like they did not take a single one. What are you doing? But they also drafted A.J. Dillon. It's like you draft another running back, but not a receiver. It seems like they're just evolving more and more into a run-first offense. They got Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. They're probably going to use them all with Aaron Jones leading the way. But I think Devontae Adams is a great receiver. I think the fact that they
Expect great things from Devontae Adams because he's going to be carrying that wide receiver core.
yes, you're absolutely right. He's going to get a large target share because nobody else is going to be able to get open. But
Mm-hmm.
this helps Alan Lazard because Aaron Rodgers actually backed him. He said, "Hey, I want him to be the number 2 receiver over Geronimo Allison and MVS." But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Aaron Rodgers personally this year. I have him at 15 as well, but I think he's going to be drafted higher, especially because of his name. And I don't think I'll be getting him on any of my fantasy teams personally.
I
I,
agree.
I I'd personally rather take a chance on somebody like a Daniel Jones, somebody that could really break out and have a year 2 leap. Because I mean, Daniel Jones had a great year. I actually have him at 16, but yeah, not excited for Rodgers.
Or it could go in, you could take a chance. Good segue into who I think is the best rookie that could do well in fantasy. And of course, when looking at everyone, I think that's Joe Burrow. You have Tua. I don't think they're going to start him right away. You have Justin Herbert.
I think Burrow's going to be the only rookie to start
Yeah, they're
your
not going to start him right away. But Joe
yeah.
Burrow, not the rushing threat. I mean, you brought up a good point that if they don't really have a rushing threat, they don't really do that well as rookies. But he's going to have great wide receivers. Um,
Yeah, they were great guys. They have
yeah,
AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins now. I
I
think
was,
Auden Tate and John Ross are even really good depth guys.
I was thinking about their offensive line, though, now that I'm thinking about it. But, I mean, I don't think it's terrible. Did they help it at all?
They're gonna get Jonah Williams back, who they drafted in the first round last year because he was
Just
injured
an
for most of
injury.
the year.
Yeah.
He'll be coming back.
So, I mean, hopefully that makes at least an average offensive line for him to work around. Um, and I think that if you're taking a swing on a rookie, that's you take it on because none of the others really start or have that consistency that you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to draft 2 quarterbacks and draft Joe Burrow as your second quarterback, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, what you were referring to was before the episode, I said I didn't have him in my top
20.
20
Yeah.
because usually the guys that are rookies that finish high are the guys who have the rushing ability. But I mean, he's not terrible on the ground, but he's gonna have to put up a lot through the air, and he's probably gonna have to break the passing touchdown record for me to really want him to be starting because the rookie touchdown record, it's not
27.
nearly as high as
Yeah.
the real NFL. I think it's half of what the passing touchdown record is for all veterans and all NFL history. But yeah, I mean, he has great potential and he's got great receiving options. He could impress us in year 1.
Yeah. And I can't, argue anything against that. I think it would be worth mentioning the rookie that's expected to do well.
Agreed.
All right. I think that sums up about everything. If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FFFanatics11, lowercase f's. Look us up on YouTube at uppercase f's, FFFanatics, no 11. And then you can look at our podcast at Podbean at, again, FFFanatics11. If you type that in, you'll see it lowercase or uppercase, but it's the same symbol. All right. But yeah, thank you guys for listening.
See ya.